In this week's Memes and Machines, we kicked off with the November Internet Awards, the Millennial Heartthrob Award, companies that own the internet, novel businesses, little pet names for each of us. We had it all. We dive into a world with customizable AI. Algorithms built by you based on your experiences, your knowledge. Is that the future? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for content creators? What does it mean for businesses? And finally, we talk about video. Top tools. What are the tips? What are the hacks? How are we thinking about video as a beginner, as an expert? And we end with a rather somber note where we kind of criticize our own industry for hypocrisy. As always, the many back and forths on Memes and Machines.
The only reason I use this coffee cup is the only one big enough to hold my coffee.
It's big, isn't it? Yeah,
That's
they're
it.
They're big mugs. Yeah.
I just need to put like a different
Wait,
logo.
How big is your? But do you fill that up to the top?
Yeah, and then add cream on top of that.
That is a big ass coffee.
And then maybe have 3 of those every morning. It's terrible. Like,
Sit back, grab a cold beverage from the fridge and relax, because you're now locked into the sounds of memes and machines.
Gents, it's good to see you both. I feel like we should have recorded our pre-game banter that we just had. That was a cool mini episode in its own right.
green room chats, they're private.
What stays in the green room stays in the green. That was I missed. You know when you think you almost had it? You had that line? Almost. And then I missed.
You thought you had that one-liner, yeah, and then it just fell flat.
Yeah, just died a death. Anyway, gents, look, I have an interesting way for us to start this thing. And I'm sure in post-production we can put some theatre, some drum rolls, some pyrotechnics, some filters over our face, some augmentation. I want to do the Internet Award Show. November Internet Awards brought to you by Memes and Machines. We have Silk Road Chris Brand. We have hungover Ben drinking his electrolytes.
Not hungover. I'm not hungover. I'm fresh today.
Mr. 3-day work week Ben. And we have the hairfluencer number 2.
The influence hair, you keep getting that wrong.
I get it
we
wrong.
Decided it's better, influence hair.
I like it. I like all these words. And one day when we're big enough, when we break 300 subs, we're going to celebrate that with a merch drop on YouTube. I want to start with what I'm going to describe as the first award, and I'm sure we can cut this in. The millennial heartthrob that is every grandma and every boomer's desire. James Blunt has dropped the ad of the year to celebrate 20-year re-release of his album. Just to give you a bit of context, gents, he's basically come out and said, and the hook was amazing, he said, you have the power to F my life by changing my name. So to celebrate 20 years, he is saying that if he gets to number 1, James Blunt will change his name. And I'll briefly just say why this is amazing. Number 1, killer hook. I'm invested in seeing him get to number 1. The guy knows how to speak the internet fluently. Number 2, it's very on brand. He has embraced internet culture better than anyone of his ilk, doesn't take himself too seriously, and it's very, very on brand. And number 3, if you see the production, the execution, the delivery, it's just really well done. Simple ad, 1 minute long, hook, drama, context, all of it. He deserves, in my view, the November Memes and Machines Internet Award for Millennial Heartthrob that boomers absolutely adore. Guilty Pleasure Award. Help me out, gents. What do you think?
I mean, to be fair, like you said, he's embraced his memification on the internet better than any celebrity I've ever seen. Certainly, you know, you can think to those that didn't take so well to their memification, like Will Smith and other people like this, right? Like, so good for him, because the internet can be one hell of a place when you're that type of musician and kind of controversial. And so the fact that he, you know, Rick Astley is the only other person I can think that's come even close to like embracing the internet culture that was built around something. And one thing these celebrities always forget is that they don't get to control what goes meme, you know? Like sometimes you think, oh, it's your best hit that's going to get you famous. No, it's that random screenshot of you when you look hilarious that got passed around TikTok, you know? Like, so embracing that is actually difficult, because it might not be your proudest moment. It might not be something. I mean, I think of the Hop Tour girl, right? Like, come on. She like, it's just interesting what goes viral, and there's no control over it. That's why it's so frustrating when the client says, can you make it more viral, please? It's like, what? Nobody knows what goes viral. Not anybody can tell you what's going to go viral.
Ben, are you paying attention? You know, when you say things that you want to go viral.
You can have good inclinations. You can have good ideas. You can have good proof. You can have good data. But you have no way of saying guaranteed that this is going to go viral.
Amen. Amen. Ben, any final words on our favourite heartthrob?
I actually don't really know what you're talking about, to be honest. Like,
doesn't even know the story.
James Blunt memes don't live in my sphere. Like, I
Of course.
would I know one? Like, I'm trying to think. Like, you know, what's his most popular? Can you get it up? Like, so I can see it. Like, what's the most popular meme? Like, maybe I do know it. I just it's not appearing in my head.
He does like.
I mean, I've been rickrolled plenty of times. Like,
so he basically slams. So people roast him online. They're like, he like the social listening. So someone will mention James Blunt. I'd rather like peel my eyes out, and then he'll say something really witty back. He does all this reactionary content all the time to people roasting him. So he's basically just playing on words.
Is this on Twitter?
Yeah, he's like Twitter satire.
I think I've seen it on Twitter.
Yeah, and apparently I posted this on LinkedIn this morning, the video sharing my appreciation for why I thought it was good, and everyone came back to me and said, like, read his book, it's phenomenal. So he's like universally adored, and like to your point, Chris, don't take yourself too seriously. Right. You know, life can be fun, right? I love the fact that he's just embraced his playful side. Good for him.
Yeah, and very few people have that successfully, I would say. You know, like even have you seen that guy that did a TED Talk that was basically like a stock guy, and he's called something Harold, and he basically did all these like stock photos that is like really cringy, like smile like this and thumbs up, and he embraced the fact that he became a meme, and now he's like world famous for being the meme. I'm just gonna look up his name.
Okay, while you're doing that, I want to go with our second award.
Hide the Pain Harold.
Hide the Pain Harold.
I think I've heard of this.
I'm going to put it into our WhatsApp group. You will definitely recognize this guy. Look at that guy.
Yeah, no, he's like the stock photo meme.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
So this guy went from total insignificance to overnight becoming one of the most recognizable faces on the internet. And he had several ways of dealing with this. He was just a normal guy, you know, just a guy that turns up to a stock photo shoot and then gets paid the amount and then goes back to his office. And then overnight, the internet embraced him as Hide the Pain Harold. And since then, he's launched books, he's done TED Talks, he's done global tours. It's insane. This guy is like, he's the only other great example I've ever seen of just embracing your memification. Even that, you know, for him, it was so funny because people said, look, he looks in pain. He's smiling, but he looks in pain. And that's how I feel in the office. It was very relatable.
Yeah, there's John Lewis on Twitter /X is really interesting. Every year, obviously, there's the person who has the @JohnLewis handle is called John Lewis. And he becomes part of culture every single year. So yeah, I love that. Look, it speaks to the internet. That's why we're giving him his shout out. I'm going to segue to the next award because look, there's too many things we could talk about. Internet tactics that just win. So, gents, give me a gimmicky thing that you've seen that's like an innovation or a technology or a platform or an application that's really novel that just blows up overnight. Something new.
Well, I mentioned that Lucia one to you before, which was that ability to create yourself as a 90s AI yearbook. So basically on Instagram, it blew up overnight because you could upload your photo to an AI app that would instantly make you look like an 90s AI yearbook photo or a Harry Potter character. Now, the reason it did so well in hindsight is because prompt engineering is quite difficult. And people just want to upload a photo booth of themselves. You know, it's much easier just to upload a selfie and then have your image delivered to you. So that's why, in hindsight, it took off. It's because many people like the AI photos, but they're not willing to learn the prompt engineering side of things in order to get those details.
Probably not. It's probably worth the $2 or whatever they have to pay to do that. I was going to actually say there's this interesting niche where serious companies do novel things and then they blow up. Like, I'll give you two examples that I think are worthy of an award. Pika Labs being one. If you look now, serious company doing amazing work, but they're releasing effectively a feature that is super novel. Like, it's not actually that useful in the world. It looks amazing, incredible. Chris, give us a little rundown of what that is. It's an I am.
So Pika Labs, like you said, OG in the space of generative video. They were one of the first three that came out with a serious model that people were interested in. And we've been waiting for about 6 to 9 months now since their initial launch. And now they've come out with this new model called 1.5. And it's really fun. It's got like gamified effects, as you say. And basically how they work is, again, just like I just explained with the photo booth stuff, you upload a photo. You don't need to prompt. So that's another thing they've tackled here. You just upload a photo, you select an effect, and that effect will get applied to your photo. And right now they have 6 of them. One of them's called Melt It. One of them's called Inflate It, Explode It, Squish It, Crush It, and Cakeify It. So exactly as they sound, you know, if you upload a photo of yourself and you press Explode It, you will explode. And it's kind of fun to just create a little clip of that and then share it on the internet. Not for serious purposes, but great marketing for them as a gimmick. Yeah, great distribution idea. Give everyone the idea of going viral by being an early user. They have suffered the consequences of that, though, in that now it takes like 3 hours to generate anything because their servers are clogged and they didn't anticipate the amount of traffic that they were going to get. Yeah.
Great problem to have. What I will say is I think it's such an underrated tactic, particularly for serious companies. Like, take Chat-GPT right now. Very serious product, and they've just released a feature that has real world utility. You know, they're trying to close the gap between robots and humans, and one of the features they've just added is you can select voice synthesis in any language or any accent. And as you imagine, the internet grabbed hold of that, and like you're seeing really funny videos of people asking Chat-GPT to have a strong Indian accent and relay common scams, phone scammers. You see people doing these regional accents that are really funny. One of my friends uploaded a video I saw with a strong Bristol accent and kind of doing those interactions. So serious company doing fun things or creating features that can be used in a playful way is a hell of an internet hack. Ben, have you seen anything cool? Hit us.
Yeah, a company called Wordware, like they're like an AI no-code building app. They launched, and you'll know this. They were when were they the first one to really the Twitter roasting thing. You might have seen it on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
you know, a few people built different versions.
Yeah, that's smart.
Wordware launched that, and basically their app hit 6 million users in a week because they obviously, you probably had to sign up to do the thingy. And there's also then this like just additional feature where you could pay like £3 to get like, and all it is a prompt. It's a fucking prompt, and they built some sort of like scraper that then prompts to then give you feedback, and then you could pay £3 to unlock more. And people obviously were paying to unlock more, and they were doing 100k a week. And all this was this novel idea, and people would have seen it on LinkedIn of just roasting a profile, just giving a description that actually is quite accurate, a bit of sarcastic humor, quite funny. I did it for most of my profiles. It's actually pretty accurate, and it's actually quite funny.
That's cool.
Like in just sort of taking the piss. And I was like, they literally have just launched their own platform by just building something that is novel, and now they've got a shit ton of users. They're not even interested in scaling that sort of product, because that could just be easily replicated by somebody else. And now people have replicated it because it's so easy to do. But
great lead magnet though, right? That's the idea.
That's what it was. It was their lead magnet to now acquire a shit ton of users to basically use their like AI app builder. You know, they can now get probably more funding, scale the business. Like I don't know how many, somebody reached out to me about this and was asking if I wanted to partner and feeded me this information.
I wonder if they saw what I saw, because 6 months ago, some guy, and I mean literally one guy, launched a WhatsApp bot called Chat-GPT. It was the funniest thing I've ever fucking sent to my mates. It was hilarious, because what it would do basically is you could give it like the details of the friend you're about to send it to, saying like their name and what they do and stuff, and it would just start roasting them. And they thought that they were like a real person. And then it would reveal itself to be called GPT. And it had been sent by someone else. It's such a funny prank to play on someone though, isn't it?
I think you have to be so the formula is the formula, right? It's all about how do people behave online. People are willing to self-deprecate. People want to have fun. They want to be entertained. When a movement gets enough traction or goes viral, more and more people feel the need then and the compulsion to get involved. So you have these social graphs that just multiply and multiply. And actually, you can't guarantee these things, but the barrier to kind of create these novel features that are really good, they're very low. In the context of the upside, they're real like moonshot tactics. And it's not for every brand. Every brand can't be going wild and doing stupid things on the internet. But I tell you what, it's if you can find the permission to do it, it's a hell of a tactic. By the way, I think this is a good segue to round off the awards. I think a good segue, because you mentioned a while ago, Chris, a future you envisaged was one where there would be custom AIs, personalized AIs. It's a really sort of democratized, people effectively building their own applications. I, at the time, and this was before like seeing what you can do on Cursor, I was a little skeptical of that idea, because I believe that there'll be a cohort of people innovating, building, but there's a lot of people that, to your point around the like novel picture app, they don't want to do the work. They don't want the friction. They just want the outcome. And I would assume that's the majority. But there are enough people that are now being inventive with these tools. Give me a kind of overarching view of the world you envisage around, I suppose, more custom AIs. And what does this mean in the context of like, and I know, Ben, it's something you've been thinking about a lot in your world.
Yeah, so the thing that I thought about, 6 to 9 months ago when we really started seeing the takeoff in AI was essentially that these large language models are amazing because of how large they are. It's in the name. It's like they know so many things that you could get so many useful things out of them. But what they are is very generalist. So what you'd want to do essentially is stack your own personalized layer on top of that big underlying large language model, which is all the things you really care about. And it's got like a filter of you on top of the large language model, so that everything that came through that filter was a lot more applicable to you. And that's essentially what I predicted. And now we're seeing it everywhere. Like Midjourney allows you to create your own personalized tag. And how you do this is you rate photos, A and B. You have to select of the two is your preference. And then basically it tunes the model, knowing that you chose the anime one over the photoreal one. And so more anime. You know, everything becomes more valuable when it has more attributes about you. We know this badly because TikTok and everyone's scraping data and advertisements and all of that jazz, right? Like, the more information they have on you, the better targeting they can do, the more conversions they make, the more valuable it is. But as a segue just to the last point, I want to say I spoke to these guys called the Door Brothers last week. Now, these guys have embraced internet culture in the same way that, you know, Rick Astley, all these other people have, in that they're creating super viral content, but it's very controversial. Remember I showed you the presidents in The Office? It was the Office version of, but it was using presidents. And this got them Hugo Boss, it got them Snoop Dogg, and several other high-ticket clients. Even though they were being very controversial with the content they put out, they embraced the fact that they knew the internet would have this go viral. They had their TikTok banned, they had their Instagram account banned, yet they still won the high-ticket clients because they were willing to risk it, and it was creative enough, and they knew what was going to go viral on the internet. So, like you said, niche combinations, risk. They don't have a big agency, so they haven't got a lot to lose. So they are the right people to take advantage of the internet culture, you know. The same is true, though, for people falling out of fame, you know. The same as could be said for James Blunt. You know, at some point he was becoming irrelevant. Then the meme cultures embraced him. He embraced the meme cultures, still here 20 plus years later. Do you know what I mean?
Embrace the meme. Fortune favors the meme.
Yeah, you don't control your own marketing. The internet controls it. The people control how you are talked about, not you. So you either embrace that or you don't.
Amen. Amen. No, I love that. Really good example, actually. And there are quite a few that I've seen and noted, sort of controversial moments, products. And you almost earn the authority to keep doing it as well. Once you've had that one hit,
right,
you kind of get permission then because you're expected to do controversial things.
Right.
And that's look, we all know that indifference is redundant in a world geared by algorithms. Extremes win attention. So if you have the permission as a company or a brand, that's a wonderful space to be, because you get to show up in the world in really interesting ways. And not everybody does. You're an insurance company, you're regulated, you don't have those permissions.
Right.
But certain people, teams, companies do. So I think it's a wonderful thing. Ben, just to go back to this kind of custom AI world, you were mentioning in our green room, you're really keen on like figuring out new systems and context windows that help you in your creative process. How are you thinking about custom AIs?
Oh, I just think what's happened, and I've commented on this before, is that all these language models are making people lazy because they just know that they can access information like pretty instantly. And the problem with that is that, like Chris alluded to, is it's very generalistic information, and then people, you know, then become unhappy with the answers provided because they're too generic. And it's like, when you actually take a step back and think about what you have to do to make it not generic, and I've been through now this, it's like, actually, it's really not that difficult to spend an afternoon collecting, you know, data in a document and then uploading it like in the knowledge center of either, you know, GPTs or in Claude projects, to then turn that generalistic content into stuff that you actually want. I'm like, wow, like, you know, generating a complex prompt is really not that difficult. You just have to like do this, be this, do this, do this. It would take you do it once and then you just iterate. So I've gone through this cycle of now going, right, Ben, I've been paying for the premium version of Chat-GPT OpenAI for about a year now, and I've barely even used it, if I'm honest. So I'm like, and I've just paid for Claude to get access to projects. And so I'm basically wanting to build out script writers for short form, long form, and LinkedIn. And so the way that I'm going about doing that is, you know, everybody talks about storytelling. So I'm starting to basically go away and find data on information on storytelling, from books to articles, websites, people who've made YouTube videos on storytelling, like that's specific to YouTube. This is how you write a YouTube script, including storytelling, and start building I've got a Google Doc that has got transcripts and all that information in. I'll title it, and then that'll be like the storytelling document. And then sorry, Chris,
it goes down to what Ollie posted this week. Curate 10 times as much as you create, and you'll be much better off. But this goes just generally into the tastemaking thing, because you're really good at that, Ben. You are a curator. Like, you would know better than any YouTube algorithm the top 10 people in video right now.
Yeah.
So then people find that valuable. So if you build a GPT of that, that's your tastemaking of the best content in this space. And that's a different type of algorithm to YouTube's algorithm that's then predicting and causing the value. I'd love to, funnily enough, we made Marcus Brownlee episode last week. I'd love to see his top 10 GPTs of stuff, because he's got good tastemaking. Whether or not he launches good products or not, that's a different idea. His tastemaking, though, very top tier. That's why he's got such good camera setup, such good editing, and such good everything else.
You're right. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt you.
I was just going to go on. No, you go, Ollie, because then I'll go back into
it. So that's really interesting. When you said that, Chris, I was thinking, if you think of an algorithm, it's based on data, and Ben's life has led him to be the person he is today.
Exactly.
Occasionally shows up to memes and machines hungover, but that's a different topic. But his experiences, his taste making is something he's cultivated through everything he's consumed, everything he's experienced, the work that he's put into his craft. Yeah. If you consider that, that's a unique data set. And when you now combine that, and you're effectively in a world where you are creating your own algorithms.
100%.
That's very, very interesting.
100%. It's one of the only ways I've ever seen to extract value out of the curation process, to be honest. Because essentially documenting everything you do all of the time is something I've argued for over a decade. I've said that to all social media managers since I've ever started training them. Document everything you do, even if you think it's a waste of time. It feels like to lots of people, there's no value in it. But now what you're essentially doing is building a custom database, which is your own custom algorithm, which is a total value package.
Knowledge
finally.
Centers.
Yeah.
Knowledge centers, exactly.
I agree.
I would pay for Ben's GPT on TikTok. As someone that's trying to grow on TikTok, I want to buy someone who I really respect's knowledge database to prompt against that. So Ben's TikTok would be one of the things I would look to as an agency.
I'd want it for free. I'd at least want mainstream.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lead magnet. He could sell up other things. That's the thing.
It is a lead magnet, yeah.
It's whatever.
I did think about that, but it's right around my taste, because what I'm doing is that I'm actually evaluating the sources myself before I then put them into the document. So I'm going, right, this is a YouTube video on storytelling, script writing, and I watch it and I go, yes, this hits the nail on the head. This is advanced, right? And or I'll read an article and go, nah, this is kind of basic. I don't want this in my document. And so this YouTuber is really good at storytelling. I know this is a top level storyteller. Yeah. I know that because I've watched enough videos to know what the difference is between a good and a great and a top tier. And so I want to I'm curating my data set based off my own taste and experience of what I know is the best. And that would be different for everybody if they were tasked with that. And people, I've talked about this before, in that when you start creating content and you're a beginner creator, I don't think you're able to really know the difference between, good, great, excellent, top tier.
I agree.
So I'm trying to now leverage my understanding to build a data set of the best information to curate then scripts and ideas based off of I want to take storytelling, I want to take my tone of voice, and I want to take people who are really good at storytelling and try and see whether I can get Chat-GPT and the O1 models to look at storytelling principles, look at all of these scripts from people that just at face value, they're just really good at storytelling, figure it out how they do it, what are the nuances that they apply, because not everybody's going to follow the same storytelling arc principles. They're going to be nuances to how they do it, but they're going to be there. Pull those out and understand it, and then build the model based off of that to then inform my own script. So it's not just this still formulaic like method. It's more just like, because there are nuances with how people like, you know, take concepts of storytelling and turn it into their own story. They do, everyone does it in their own different way. So it's trying to figure out, can I use it to understand those nuances, which I think are what are the most valuable things to do. Like that's what makes a creator really, really good. It's taking a concept and making it their own and then adapting it. And I want to try and use Chat-GPT to see whether it can understand those adaptations to then like apply to me and help me learn as well. Like to understand, okay, what are they doing in this video to make it so good based off this knowledge that I've given you?
Well, just rounding it off, the thing that I didn't predict 6 months ago, Ollie, was I didn't predict both sides of the personalization. So what I did predict was the ability to upload your own database. What I didn't predict is the ability to tune the output and tone of voice. Ben just brought it up. Like your GPT, you can tell it, answer in a very bullet point, creative way with giving educational this, or you can say be sarcastic or be like, whatever your matched tone of voice is to your online persona, you can build that in to make it sound like you when it's talking back to the person. Now that's really interesting because obviously ChatGPT is very Wikipedia. Lots more people like this character AI, this meta, Judi Dench and stuff. They like that like tuned version of something to make it more relatable than being like talking to Wikipedia. So again, like imagine Ben's GPT not only has Ben's knowledge and tastemaking, but sounds and talks like Ben as well. It's like way more valuable then. And I didn't see both of the, personalized sides of the coin. So I know we want to move on to other topics, but rounding it off, it's extraordinary how personalized you can make it now.
Yeah. I think there just
needs
to
make
be
a
more
talking head of Ben and then make the lip sync and actually talk in his voice. You could add 11 labs, made it look like him, make it talk like it could basically be Ben in your Zoom call.
Finally, never hung over on a memes and machines.
Yeah.
Finally.
Never hung over version of Ben.
What we need somebody to build is to connect the LLMs to the APIs of the social media platform, so they can just automatically.
They'll never give
data.
up that information though, because that's their value. That's the point of these algorithms. Elon bought X because
not for the algorithm, for the content. Sorry.
Oh, but they'll never release it. Like
I want it to
LinkedIn
be like,
and Instagram will never release their content APIs to AI models because that's where all their value is. They're big data companies.
That's where I would just go like. I would just like feed it 100 profiles and go, and then just be like, look at all of the metrics. This is like what I've discussed about before, but you have to do it kind of manually now. I would want just to build a model just based off of, that is end game sort of product.
The only way that would happen, and it has actually just happened, is YouTube launching their own. Yeah, they've just launched their own version of that.
I was just going to say, Chris, you can definitely, I know we've had this debate before privately, but you can definitely do that if you're not saying all the data. If you're going, I'm going to curate content, you can do API calls, you can do it in an official manner if it's for a specific user case. Or equally, like you might want to be a hosting platform for podcasts. And you can, if you get everyone as your hosting platform, you'd be doing all the API calls and you'd have all the data. But to Ben's point, I think he's saying like, if you're curating like the best, you can, it's like, obviously they're not going to give all the data, but you can definitely do a version that probably gets to the same outcome, which is like elite. And I think we're probably like 2 years away from someone really cracking these types of tools. But the use cases then are very different. Like what's really useful to you, Ben, might not be as useful to me in the like, my creative process. It goes back to that customized that's kind of unique to me. You do scripting. I just riff off like a madman occasionally. So like...
But what I want, to go back to it, because you can do it in something, it's just not efficient. I put my profile, my TikTok profile in and say, this is my profile, create me a content calendar for the next 30 days. And you will, and with scripts and with everything, and it will look at all of my scripts. It will build my tone of voice based off all of my scripts. It will look at all of the data. It will look at what's performed well, what hasn't performed well. It will then make different versions of stuff that's performed well, and it will be done just like that. Like literally just put my name in, and then I can go and do it for anybody's account as well. And if I could do it for anybody else's account, then I've then got even more content. I go find 20 creators that are all very similar to me that have created different content than me. I'll do it for theirs, and it would just be instant. Like yeah. And when we get to that point, then I ask myself, how do you stay ahead? Okay, we've had this conversation before. How do you stay ahead when it becomes so now easy for anybody to create like ideas and scripts for themselves based off everybody's fucking data? You might think, but then you still have to do the recording, still have to have the on-camera presence, you have to do the editing.
For now.
But then I guess, but then if we take it a step further, well, then I've got my AI avatar that looks like, looks like Ben, like we discussed, got now his voice through 11 Labs or whatever. And all these models are now combined into one as well, and I just go, right, I plug in the profile. It does all the transcripts, does all the data, feeds those transcripts into the avatar with my voice, done. And then there's the editing. The editing, I think, is a bit more complex. Like the editing on top of like just a talking head is probably the last thing I think will be mastered. And that probably will be the hardest thing to master. But then imagine that. I plug my profile in, and then here's 30 videos, talking head based off all data and transcripts done for me there.
Well, I can give you a little bit of insight into that, because think about it. Midjourney gave people that didn't have a graphic design background the ability to make photorealistic images. So this is like never learning Photoshop for 15 years and then all of a sudden becoming a top 1% Photoshop user overnight, right?
Yeah.
So let me tell you something interesting. 35 million Midjourney users. How many do you think have gone viral? As a percent of those,
probably not a lot.
0.01.
Exactly. So which tells you what? It's all about distribution. When the floor gets raised to the point where everyone has a plug and play ability to make graphic design, you then need to be creative and think outside of the box, because it's no longer special that you can do photorealistic posters.
It's always always the case. So it's like any content creation has been owned by people that get distribution, and like understanding with distribution in mind is part of it's the modern creative process. It's not a one-way broadcast. You're doing it with distribution in mind.
But the problem with tech is once you've seen it once, it's no longer impressive. So if everyone has that plug and play option, the first person to do it will go viral, and then the 100th person won't go viral.
This is what I had this conversation on my stream the other day with somebody. Somebody asked me, said, what happens when I can just create the content exactly like you, Ben?
Exactly, yeah.
I said, good question.
Basically what
that's what I said. My answer was, when that technology comes available, do you think I'm just going to have been sat on my fucking ass watching it go by?
Exactly.
I will still be 50 steps ahead of you.
That's the whole point. Is they think I would have going to stay static and haven't constantly been alive.
I would have figured out how to supercharge that. Like, you can just copy me. That means I can copy everybody else, and I'll figure out a better strategy than you, because I know what I'm doing.
Ever. By the time you know about it, mate, I'll have been on it for 2 years. That's what you should tell him. Like,
Your wife eat your breakfast, Ben. Like that. You came out firing out. I like that energy. I do want to build on that, because I think we talk in the context of content creation a lot. I had a friend with a conversation. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday. Shout out, Lucas. If you were ever in question that this podcast is AI generated, some of the nonsense that comes out of our mouths would suggest otherwise. Shout out to Lucas. So he's a really smart guy, worked at HP for a long time, I think Dell, sort of 30 years experience in tech, worked a lot of commercial roles, does marketing, e-com, very much understands AI, etc. He's building a consultancy now that is very much AI for marketing and sales teams. And he was telling me about a user case of one of his clients, which is the largest manufacturer of kitchens in Europe. And one of the things that he said, he looked at real problems in that business. And one of them is selling kitchens is quite complex, meaning you have to be a designer. The sales reps are the designers. They have to be salespeople. They actually have to understand budgeting and finance. And to train people to be really competent or to be a top 10 salesperson is about 2 years before people get good at this particular job. However, their retention of staff is about 2 years tenure. So you look at those dynamics and go, there's a real problem here. We get people, we train them until they're good, and that's the average tenure before someone leaves. So you go, how can we use AI to help staff retention? And how can we use AI to help training? And how can we use AI in the sales process to mean that our conversion's better? And what they've basically done is they've overlaid they've looked at that early interaction of a sales rep, and they've basically used generative tools and data enrichment to basically customize some of that early prompt sheets. You know, when you're taking a brief for a kitchen, it's all customized based on archetypes of customers and their however many millions of data points they've had based on their buying behaviors. So it's predictive modeling with a degree of accuracy based on real data. It helps the sales reps because they're doing a lot less administration. They're getting all these like crib sheets and fact finds from data enrichment at the sales point. So their conversion is noticeably better. I think they were doing some early samples, like 13 to 15% better conversion. The satisfaction of the reps is higher because they're doing less admin, less filling out forms, all of this. So if you look at that long tailwind, they'll probably retain staff longer. So if you just went across every meaningful metric in that sales cycle, from staff retention to better conversion to better experience, you can think how that multiplies across a business that sells 400 million kitchens every decade or whatever the number is. You go, wow, that's a smart company bringing in a smart person to figure out how they build these agentic processes. And he was saying to me, his methodology is very much starting with culture. Like when he assesses an organization, he looks at the tools and the technology that they currently have. Right now, how many companies are buying 50,000 licenses for Chat-GPT and 2% of the staff are using them? Maybe if you get 10% of the staff using Chat-GPT because you train them, you teach them how to prompt, it seems really basic. What is the impact on that business, on productivity, on satisfaction? And it's really what you're describing. And it was like in your response then, the number one job and the only thing you can do is create a culture of embracing and experimenting with new things, but doing it in a very intentional way. And that's the foundation of all of this. Content creation, business, marketing, this is the foundation.
Take everything you just said and apply it to teachers. Think about it.
100%. Yeah.
The number one reason I stopped being a teacher was because of the external marking and planning and resources and all of the exercises, all of the stuff that is not glorified when people talk about teaching. Because everyone goes, oh, you want the 6-week summer holidays. Oh, you like having 6 hours in daytime. It's like, no. You spend all your evenings marking and planning for the next day and doing the curriculum and all that other stuff. Now, how much more satisfaction would teachers have if AI did all that? And how much more learning would happen for pupils, right? Like imagine the one thing that's the hardest thing when you're planning, this is a bit technical, but it's called differentiation. You know, anyone that's planned anything that has like a keynote or an event or a masterclass or a teaching, there's lots of different abilities in the room. It's really hard to cater to everyone's ability. Someone who's going to be really, really good, might sit up front, just being stereotypical here, answer every question. Other people at the back, they're just playing around. They're not listening. They're not paying attention. How does a teacher do all of that at the different skill levels required inside of a classroom? AI. That's how they do it. Like, if anyone's going to embrace this and then make their job better again, teachers need to. And therefore, schools and curriculums and governments need to, because they're all fed the syllabus via the government. So it needs to happen at scale. Like you're talking about one company there that fits kitchens. I'm talking about millions of teachers in the UK.
What about general practitioners, like recording these personal conversations that you have with your doctor, transcribing, making recommendations, documenting that data, having reference points? There's actually very simple, the technology's there, the culture isn't. That's the problem in all of this. I don't have high hopes for education to shift. How it's barely changed in, since the internet age, right? Like it hasn't changed that much structurally. I think that's the biggest, but culture is the biggest barrier, not the technology.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I think their hand's going to be forced. I think this is the one evolution where it can't continue being in the same industrial type era that we teach right now. If you look at a great, like the Khan Academy is so far ahead. They've built AI into all of their stuff. Now, they were an online tutoring class place predominantly, so they were the best place for all of this stuff. But honestly, what they're doing is next level. Like, schools will not be able to compete with
What are they doing?
Everything's been built into an AI database. In the same way, we've been talking, this whole segue of this episode has been personalization of everything, right? That's what they've done. Khan Academy have made everything an AI GPT. They've also made AI tutors that follow along with you and guide you all the way through your curriculum at the pace you want to learn. That's stuff that mainstream schools do not do. Now, you're talking about, like, you know, I'm going to relate this to our American audience if we have any listeners there. Like, year 7 and year 8 in the UK is around 13 to 14 years old. They could be studying advanced degree level, like, biology if they wanted to be at that age, because AI would have allowed them to grow and learn at the speed they want to. You know, there's no restrictions as to your age, as to what you can study or what you're interested in or what you want to pursue more. Maybe there's not even things that are being offered by the traditional academic place, you know, like prompt engineering. Maybe you want to do that. Maybe it's not available in your school yet. Maybe you want to learn this outside of school and have a personal tutor. That's what's going to happen. So schools are going to become a lot more collaborative. And so doctors too. Every doctor I've ever seen in my adult life has just been prescribing me something. That's not what a doctor actually should do. A doctor should be there to do other things than just be a GPT for, here's the medication you should take.
Here he is, Silk Road Chris. Silk Road Chris is coming out.
Everyone's going to have to embrace the physical side of their job, is essentially what I'm saying here. You know, communal, human-based interaction stuff. That's what's going to be more valuable when there's a GPT able to give you extraordinary amounts of information on tap, intelligence at scale.
The whole thread we're describing is like augmentation. Like we're kind of rooting all this in real. It's like augmentation, and the problem I'm seeing a lot of A, content creators, B, marketeers, C, companies, they're jumping straight into technology as the solution. They're going straight into tech, and it's like no. That's not the way of looking at it. Solve culture, adoption, enthusiasm. Understand the context, really decide what problem you want to solve, and then the world of technology is one of abundance. You find all of this stuff and you think, how do I connect all these possibilities in interesting ways? And that's I suppose, the architecture of how people need to think about building businesses and systems to help them. And it's kind of unique because this mindset is very much a developer mindset or an engineer mindset or a computer scientist mindset. And it was gatekept by the very few people on the planet that spoke code. Now, all of us can think in these terms. So, it's a super interesting time across everything.
Funny you should say that, because they would refer to it as structured data. Engineers would refer to the you know, like, as you say, if a school wanted to embrace technology right now, how structured is your data? If it's not structured, you're getting no value out of embracing AI. If it is structured, you'll extract some value. That's the truth of it. Like, people that want to jump into AI that never got involved in the internet have got lots more steps to take before they can get the most value out of AI. That's what I'm saying. You can't just jump straight into the deep end with technology.
So, you know, you inspired me, Chris, to like think a little more about my own data, and my system of emailing myself random links is probably not going to cut it in. Yeah. So
your database is you emailing yourself. That was so funny when you brought that up.
But what I've done to solve this is it's a habit I like. So I don't want to change that. I've decided to just do an automation where I keyword now things that I want just documented in Notion. So I still email myself, but I just had a keyword just there.
You know what? That's actually fine, because what me and Ben discussed, right, is the apps like My Mind and other things that can store stuff and tag stuff AI in your cloud, in your database. What you should do is set up an automation chain through either make.com or Zapier, so that every time you receive an email from yourself, which will only ever be when you do want to send yourself, also send it to My Mind, send it to other things, because then it gets stored and tagged in the same way we do it. It's just that you want to do that, the thing you're familiar with, which is email yourself, which is if that's the quickest way, just lead it to something else.
You've just absolutely slammed my automation, and yours is way better than the one
I've got silly things like that I do all the time. Like, I prefer to send stuff to my Slack channel than I do my Discord room, but I have it sent and connected together. So if I send it to Slack, it will then send it to Discord. These are things that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to outside people, but just the way and ease of which I have 2 phones. I have like a Huawei phone and an iPhone. On the Huawei phone, the button to share quickly is through to Slack. And on the iPhone, it's through to Discord. So then it's just, whichever's the preference.
Benny keeps denying this Silk Road Chris slander. I want to find his alias. He's got 2 phones, a Huawei phone, that's dodgy as hell, by the way.
Yeah.
He's got the burner phone. He's off the grid sometimes. This is definitely Silk Road Chris behavior.
No, Ben can relate to this because it was free. Everything I get, like I'm wearing right now, like merch from CoffeeZilla, the YouTuber. Basically,
I used to have a Huawei phone. They're good.
Exactly. And especially if they're free, they're really, really
Chinese
good.
spyware. It's Chinese spyware. That's anything made by China is just Chinese spyware.
Logitech, are you listening? We want free stuff. Other people, Rode, all these other people, give us free tech and we'll talk about it on the podcast.
We are a cheap date. I just want to put that on record.
You're right.
We are a very cheap date. Send the stuff. Send the equipment. You'll get shilled to these wonderful listeners repeatedly. Come and get us.
Mate, I wear it all the time, literally. I wondered actually the other day with this mug, like Sports Direct and others, I must have got it hundreds of thousands of views. I hate Sports Direct. I hate Mike Ashley. He's like the former owner of Newcastle, right? Like the only reason I use this coffee cup is the only one big enough to hold my coffee.
It's big, isn't it? Yeah,
that's
they're
it.
They're big mugs. Yeah.
I just need to put like a different logo.
How big is your? But do you fill that up to the top?
Yeah, and then I have cream on top of that.
That is a big ass coffee.
And I maybe have 3 of those every morning. It's terrible, like. But it is what it is, I'm willing to do it because they are the one that provided the thing that solved my problem. They gave me a giant coffee cup at like less than $5.
And this is why product marketeers and brand marketeers need to speak. They need to think. They need to talk. I want to conclude, gents. Ben, give us some tips on video. So what tools are you digging right now?
Any tips?
Any tips? Just give us some tools. I want to know some new tools.
I've got a question for you, Ben. I've got a question for you.
Okay.
There's 4 different ByteDance AI tools coming out in the next 6 to 8 weeks. You mentioned one in the green room. I found another one that's going to be, it's actually been officially told that it's going to be post-American election, similar to Sora that we discussed. Of these tools though, have you found any particularly exciting to your TikTok needs? Because I'm seeing them as more generally useful to, like that filter thing you said, where it's like cool gimmicky stuff, but it's not going to be for your high level of content creation requirements. Like, has any tickled you yet?
Not really. Like most of the AI, most of the people using AI tools are the people that are creating content on AI tools.
Right.
I don't actually see this is what I just created, but they're just content creators that create stuff about tools, AI.
Not mainstream applications yet.
No, the only people that I also see doing the video generation of the AI stuff is the ones that are the dancing figures and stuff. But actually integrated into talking head, where there's a person in it, where which is what a lot of content is. I don't know. I said before, the first application, the first usable application will be probably B-roll, as B-roll it will just replace stock B-roll that's boring. But in terms of actual video generations, not necessarily. I mean, there's all sorts of the eye correction stuff, which is kind of useful. I think the AI avatars are fairly useful for faceless content, but I'm not a faceless content creator. Honestly,
my favorite thing's the music, right? And we talked in a previous episode about how TikTok pays 30% of royalties out towards the major record labels versus 5% towards the content creators. So imagine if they produced like a tool that could generate music so that they could save money on that major record labels thing. Like, would you be interested in that? Like, because the options in other platforms, because TikTok's kind of unique, they have like pop music in there that you can add to videos and it's fine. Anywhere else, you've got to use stock music and it's terrible. So generating your own music to go behind based on the video, you know, and would that be interesting to you? Or would you prefer to use the big hits?
Yeah, no, I use stock music. Stock music's not too bad if you search for long enough. I use a few different platforms, which is okay. I don't usually go for the big hit. Sometimes I do if it just fits what I'm doing. I just pick music that just fits the feeling that I want to create with the video. To be honest,
cool. Do you generate like lounge music for behind a like thing where you're talking a lot and it's very in-depth details?
Yeah, I like lo-fi. I like lo-fi music.
Exactly.
So lo-fi hip hop is what I generally like, or piano, like anything with a piano.
There's your GPT store right there. Produce a lo-fi hip hop music app. That would be so popular.
Can I put a request in, Ben? I'd like you to do some like bow chicka wow wow. Some, like, that's just a personal preference of mine.
Just record yourself and then make it a sexy GPT. That would be hilarious.
Yeah. Sexy GPT. That's what I'm talking about.
If I'm honest, in the last year, my content creation like tool editing stack has not changed.
Wow, you see, that's fascinating because
I use Premiere Pro. Different. I use Premiere Pro. I film off my camera and I screen record and use
fascinating, isn't it?
Captions and stuff.
You know what I love about that? There's wisdom in like find something that's great, that works, that's well and does what it needs to do.
Adding more fancy stuff is just adding bells and whistles, and it's just adding time that I don't think is going to make much difference to. I spend more time on my idea, my scripting, and then the actual like video editing process like is just about, I can be as simple or as extravagant as I want. If I want to go more extravagant with the editing, it's going to take me a lot more time. I don't really like to go for that approach. I think it's hard to sustain. I don't necessarily think it's a huge amount of, it just adds that you have to do it. You have to do it. It's either all or nothing. Otherwise it falls in the middle and it looks shit. So you have to, if you want to go animation style and really high end, you have that After Effects. Like, it's really time consuming.
Being too polished doesn't work on TikTok though. You told me that in the early days. That's why
it does sometimes. It doesn't. It depends. It all depends on the niche. It really depends on the niche of content that you create, your personality, your audience. You know, some people can pick up their phone and just record them talking shit for 5 minutes, upload it, and it will do really well because all of their people are like, oh my god, girl, I love you, like, and everyone in the comments is just gaslighting them, and that's fine. Whereas, like, you know, a tech creator does that, and, you know, it's not necessarily, it's received that well because, you know, oh, you're a tech creator, you should have good quality camera. You know, there's this like internal bias like towards certain niches where there's a different level of expectation on the like production value. Why should I listen to you about talking about tech when your setup and camera and mic is really shit? Like, I want somebody that actually has got a polished style because I'm just going to have more trust for them, even though they might not necessarily know what they're talking about.
Yeah, but you kind of have to, because it's hypocrisy, isn't it? It's like, if I'm doing comedy and I'm not funny, like, I'm talking about production and editing and it's not very good.
Oh, if you're Marcus Brownlee and you're doing tech reviews and you launch a terrible tech product, then yeah, of course, you know, you're going to get ripped a new one.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's one of the hidden secrets. Think of how many marketing companies, I speak agencies specifically, that talk about being creative, irreverent, and then you see what they produce and you see their website and you see how they show up in the world. And I go, they may be really capable teams, but I just go, what a contradiction. It really bothers me. I go, how many marketing companies can't market themselves? And it's actually surprisingly common that they can't. And it does offend me. It's like, oh, why? This is the core. This is you. This is what you say you do. You say you're the best at this particular thing.
I know.
Action.
Because they're trying to be content creators.
Yeah, words get thrown around a lot. I hear people calling themselves disruptors. And I think, do you even really know what that word means? Because disruption means that you're producing a model that's different to everyone else who's out there, and you look exactly like all your competitors. So where exactly are you disrupting anything? Whenever I see this used in a tag, I'm like, what does it mean though? Like it's like saying, like, remember how we talked about companies calling themselves a family and how that's become like a dark thing to do because of all of the mistrust around like the companies that did that. The same is true with all of these marketing agencies that claim we're the number one disrupting marketing agency in Europe. It's like, according to what though? You know, like you've lost all meaning of the words.
That's the beauty of it. You can't, there is no definition for disruptive. It's ubiquitous now. So I can say I'm the number one disruptive video creator on LinkedIn right now. No one can prove me wrong. Come at me, Ben. Give me evidence. Show me some numbers.
Claims
prove
are
me
what
wrong.
puts people off, aren't they? Because everyone claims they're the number one disruptor, except there can only be one number one.
Yeah, do you hear that? Say it louder. Say it so Ben can hear that. Tell him again, Chris. Say it. Say it again. Go on. He's not listening.
I just think it's hilarious how we all want clients to have better interactions with us. And I'm talking to other agency owners here if you're listening. But the amount of garbage we throw at them and the amount of jargon that we say, and then we're starting the relationship off badly. This is going for everyone, by the way. This is going for influencers. This is going for content creators, agency owners. We all start it badly. And as soon as someone says, we can do this, and they make a big claim, and then they don't do it, then what happens is a client gets what's called a burned bridge. And I've spoke to so many people recently that have gone, Chris, you need to make me guarantees because the last time we did this, they just said something and they never produced it. And I said, if this is the attitude you're going to come in with, I don't want to work with you, I'm afraid.
That was like such teacher energy, but I agree with you, dude.
It's like, well, it's just terrible, isn't it? Like, imagine that, like, because the worst thing is micromanaging someone that's supposed to be an expert that you're paying. Ben will tell you this, right? Like, imagine if your client started telling you how to set up the camera, what sort of shot you need, what sort of angles you need, what sort of mood and feeling. And imagine if they start telling you that, but they hired you for your expertise because they are, unable to do it themselves. That's what's terribly tragic in that situation. And that's what happens when people start claiming things that they can't do, burning bridges, spending money, not doing the things that they claim they can do. We all have to suffer with that type of relationship with clients. It's terrible. It's so annoying.
I concur, gents.
Sorry to be a downer on the end of the episode, but
you know what? It's fine. We started high, we ended low.
Yeah.
The emotional roller coaster that is memes and machines. I do need to go, gents, because I have an offensive amount of work to do today that I'm actually not looking forward to doing. But there we are. Life gets in the way. Good to chat as always, and I'll see you soon.